Okay then, so it's Wednesday, 11th of March. Gonna go over today's move on the S&P. I didn't take any trades again. I had an idea lined up, and unfortunately, it just ended up playing out towards the end of the AM session rather than where I was looking for it to play out. But the bias was kind of correct. Like the idea of where I wanted to see price go was kind of correct, so I'm not going to complain about that. Um, but yeah, ultimately just made the decision not to trade today just because, if you look on the 5 minute here, it's a little bit back and forth both ways. Yeah, so pretty much what we're looking at, if we go on the 1 hour chart, let's get rid of the drawings for a start. Actually, let's go 30 minute. So my two targets today were the previous AM low and the Asia session low, because on the 15 minute chart or even the 5 minute chart, Monday's PM session had this imbalance here and it just seemed right. So we had, one draw, two draw, three draws bearish. And we also had CPI today, which came in, I think, the same as last week, or the last news release. Yeah, so no changes there. Yeah, to start off, firstly, it's Wednesday, so I marked out the 8 o'clock 15 minute candle in the range, just because on Wednesdays I'm trading the break and retest as per my new rules here. Didn't take a trade today, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not mad about it, and it's just one of those, like, it just wasn't optimal for me. I was looking between, I was looking between US500, US100, and ES on the futures market, just to see like the differences between the charts, try and get more of a confirmation, more confluence, just to see where I'm going. But yeah, my initial thoughts were that price seemed bearish despite an initial break from the range to the upside. So what I mean by that is, if we go on the 15 minute, the CPI candle, we got that break upwards, and what I meant by price seemed bearish was more, this displacement through the range, and yeah, from that I sort of felt, if we get a retest of the midpoint after breaking through, then we can target the AM low and then the previous daily low, which actually I think aligned with the Asia low. Is that right? Is that right? That's the question. 30 minute chart. Yeah, so the previous daily low was the Asia low from yesterday. So yeah, as you see, I've drawn out the CPI high here. Just dragged it out a little bit for ease. And there were a few imbalances on this price action after the London session. S&P swept the London low. Same with the Nasdaq. And yeah, so we'll just go through my notes and just figure out what I was doing. So 833 price has already begun trading down through the range, waiting to see if it breaks downwards for a bearish retest at the open. So like I say, 833 is around this candle here. These two candles broke through the range, and what I wanted to see was ideally like the retracement off of this low here after taking it to then retest and then come down. But for reasons I'll get into, I just didn't feel like that was going to happen. And I think it was more so on the 1 minute chart, as we got closer to it. Like, it just looked more bullish at this point. We got this break structure here, especially up here. Now, there was a slight reaction down, but it wasn't enough for me to get in. So yeah, like I said, the initial move would have looked something like that with the TP to previous daily low for like 3.3 to 1 or something. I'll put that in place afterwards. And yeah, so currently trading below Asia and London session. Potential targets: yesterday's AM low, the previous daily low, and the fair value gap within Monday's PM session that I mentioned before. I was thinking Wednesday more of a bearish move after the push up on Monday and Tuesday, to put in the high of the week. That was my initial trade idea. So at 8:30, the 5 minute candle closed below the range, leaving a displacement imbalance near the midpoint. Short looks on so far, and I wrote that at 8:41. So if we go onto the 5 minute chart at 8:30, that is this candle here. You can see it closed, and 8:41 we were looking at, I think, this pullback here. So that's when I wrote that. The short looks on at the moment. And then, yeah, previous daily low, next target. Price may not come back to the midpoint at this rate. Price came close to midpoint at 8:41 and has since broken downwards, taking yesterday's AM low, which is this. It literally just tapped it, and I felt like this level may be revisited, as we can see has been the case outside of the AM session in between the lunch hour. So yeah, pretty pleased that I didn't take anything today. Didn't go trigger happy into it. As a side note, the futures market looks to be more in line with what I would be expecting from the model at this time. It may be worth considering moving to futures, as CFDs can be manipulated by the brokers. And in terms of that, if we go on to the minis, yeah, so this was more like 9 o'clock, and then it just felt like it was a little bit cleaner on the futures market, because obviously everyone sees the same price, and it's not different prices depending on what your broker wants to put it at. But yeah, nonetheless, either way, both trades, if I had taken them at that time on whichever market, would have been stopped out. But yeah, 8:52, gonna pop out, grab some lunch, see where we are when we return. And there was a retest at 9:05, but price moved straight through on the 1 minute, looking for further confirmation closer to the open. If the 9:15 15-minute candle inverses downward displacement, consider no trade. So what I meant by this was, on the 15-minute chart, was this candle here. If this candle inversed here, I would have considered no trade. But for the fact that, it just wicked up just above the range and then came back down, closed below the range again, I was like, right, this is respecting the range at the moment. But I did just want to wait until the open, because I've been caught out multiple times with the break and retest at the open, where we see a move like this take everyone out, and then it goes in the direction that we're looking at. So yeah, I held off a little bit, just waited. Price respecting range, still waiting for close 15-minute. Yeah, that's fine. Still uncertain at 9:20. Wait for open, as CPI high could be the new draw after post London low swept. So that's pretty explanatory. We swept this low here, and the CPI data high was up here. As you can see, price has swept that, and then as price started coming up towards this, I was watching the Nasdaq a little bit, and you can see, what is this, 9:15, 9:30. It was a bit more bullish than the S&P 9:30. Maybe on the 5-minute, kind of reflect it a bit more. So like you can see all these 5-minute candles respecting the CPI high with a little sweep. And, I could have gone for a little rejection trade here, but I decided against it just because I don't have as much data with the rejection and the bounce model, and I just didn't feel as confident. So yeah, futures currently respecting the bottom of the range, whereas CFD trading near hypothetical stop loss. Futures consolidating below, CFD broken above range. So this one might be a bit harder to follow, but what I mean is, coming into the open, price had already traded up through this 15-minute range, whereas if we look, if we look at this candle here at 9:15 compared to the 9:15 candle on the futures market, which did eventually close above, I meant more around this sort of zone here. It was respecting a bit more, and I was looking at the 1 minute time frame a little bit. And I meant more like this sort of range here. So it's one of them. I'm not really sure about my thoughts on using the futures market compared to the IC markets charts as a confluence. I don't really feel like it's a smart thing to do because it kind of sends my head in multiple different ways. But in today's case, it was more just like I was still cautious, conscious that I am on a losing streak at the moment. Um, and yeah, I was just definitely more conscious. Yeah, open has broken towards the CPI Asia high is the next possible reversal or rejection of this high. And what I mean is the Asia high up here or a rejection of the CPI high. My reason for that being NASDAQ did eventually take the Asia high, whereas this is the CPI high here. So NASDAQ was a lot more bullish today, initially at least. And I was looking, my reason for the rejection off of this was I was looking for an SMT, basically. I was looking for an SMT and just to see what was going on around it. But nonetheless, if we go back into the 5 minute, all the bodies of the candles continued to respect the CPI high. We had this 2 5 minute candles, three 5 minute candles close above it just on the 15-minute chart. All candles respected the CPI high, signaling bearish intent. And yeah, so from here, probably no trade today unless a retest of the midpoint to go higher. NASDAQ cleared CPI high and London high, US500 holding below CPI high after sweep. Yeah, price looks bullish now. Initial idea invalidated. So that initial idea is, the short off of this retest here is completely invalidated and out of the question at this point. For the time that I would like to enter the trade is usually like around the open. That's what I prefer. And like I say, what I was looking for over here did eventually happen pretty much to the T. At 11.25, you can see price breaks down. So it's like similar to this move here. And then we get the retest up to the midpoint to go short to take that previous daily low and pretty much to the pip. That did play out. But at this time, I was not looking at the charts for that to even be a question. Yeah, done for the day, 9:39, completely closing the charts now at 9:52, no longer looking for the model, show some restraint, interesting price action to look at. It's one of those, like, it's interesting in that it played out a little bit later. For reference, I was toying with ideas around, if we look at, say, for example, this sort of range here, I was toying with ideas for a 3-to-1. This is currently at 4.3. If we go to 3-to-1, like this rejection would have been sweet, or even what I was looking at on the 1 minute is after we displaced below this low here, put that in a full line, we had the fair value gap there. We could put that like blue, and it would possibly be something like this. That would have been a nice 3-to-1 there. Good trade, good rejection trade. All of these bodies of candles respecting the CPI high. Just, but again, it's like being able to identify that I'm not actually trading the break and retest when Wednesdays is when I'm looking for the break and retest, and I'm trading the rejection potential. It's not what I'm looking for. It's just about respecting my rules and just staying patient. There were multiple points where I could have won today and multiple points where I could have lost. For example, another thing that I mapped out was a long off of this midpoint retest. So we put that there at 6776. So that would be 5 points, 7-1, and go for 3-1 like that. So we move that across here. That could have been valid. 952 up to 959. So there were opportunities today, but with just how price was moving, I was uncertain, and ultimately I didn't pull the trigger. I just decided to exercise caution, just a bit of restraint, because it wasn't what I was looking for. Like, my initial biases were bearish, and this was my initial target. Well, these were my initial targets to the downside. I was expecting to see price go that way. Didn't really want to switch my bias, so I just decided to stay out and just watch. Simple as that. And yeah, so I think that's going to cover it for today's price action. You can see we traded down below, pulled back up to midpoint again, rejected off that again, swept even lower, and now we're trading a little bit higher, but nonetheless still within this or still just below the 8 a.m. 15-minute range. And yeah, so I think that's mostly it. Tomorrow I'm going to see if we get a previous daily low, previous daily high. We can look at the range on the NASDAQ. What are we actually working with here? Well, today's low is going to be here, today's high. So if we take this off, for example, how do I do command? There you go. So put that in green, and we can put this one in red. So if the Asia session does not trade below this level, and we see, although we could still come down here, and we see price trade downwards into this imbalance here from Monday's PM session on the NASDAQ, and then we get say for example we get like a reaction off of this higher time frame point of interest here, I would then be expecting maybe something like that, up, something like that. That's what I would be looking at for tomorrow. So it all depends on what we get. Like I say, previous daily low, previous daily high model, that's not the one I'm looking at. This is the one I'm looking at. Previous daily low, previous daily high model works best Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Look more at NQ for this. Does play out on S&P, but not as much. Well, I just don't have as much data, like I said in yesterday's video. So yeah, ideally that's what I'm looking for. And the entrance, if we want to see like a perfect entry, would be something like this. Pop the inverse like that. Break a structure there. Maybe bring that up a little more. And then fair value gap like this. Can change this as well. Yeah. Fairly straightforward. If I don't see that tomorrow, I'm not taking a trade or something around this sort of idea. Maybe this comes up a bit more during Asia. It all depends. All depends what we get. But yeah, that is essentially what we'd be looking at. And say, for example, we would do something like this. Maybe the inverse is a bit smaller. Maybe it's something like that. And then we go for this. That would be ideal for 3 to 1. Beautiful. Yeah, I'll just check the news going into tomorrow. Let's see what we got. I think we do have some red folder. Unemployment claims as usual. So yeah, granted, there's no more big news that comes up on the war. We'll just have to see. We'll wait and see. But again, it could be the case that I don't take any trades this week because I'm not going to trade Friday. And that's it. So with all that being said, trade smart, trade safe, trade your plan, and yeah, I'll catch you tomorrow.